the commanding Maldini, the metronomic Pirlo, the dazzling Kaká, and the offside Inzaghi. When you think of the Christmas tree, you think of 2000's Milan. Everybody does, but it's not the original. So let's take a look at the history of the formation, recreate it in FM26, and see whether it's still viable in the modern era. We start in the Netherlands with the Kerstboom. That's just Dutch for Christmas tree. In 1988, Adriaanse took charge at a freshly relegated FC Den Haag with a very simple philosophy. Football is about entertainment. Den Haag would end that season as top scorers en route to promotion. The next season, third highest scorers, as they finished comfortably mid-table in the Eredivisie. 2 years later they were relegated and Adriaanse sacked. It was not sustainable, but for a brief while it was fun. The key focus was the attacking triangle. Heine Otto was the focal point, with strikers Harry van der Laan and Frans Darnen as willing runners nearby. If he couldn't win the first ball, they'd be in a strong position to press immediately. Here's an example with Parma. As the striker goes for the header, we have options for the flick inside and outside, which is where it goes, and we are immediately on the front foot. The shot is poor though. The attacking midfielders also provide width, often making runs from inside out, which allows the deeper midfielders to break into the space they've vacated, or by running the channels in transition, where they can then cross to the big man or wait for support to come underneath. Both those moves ended in shots from our midfielders. At Den Haag, this would have been Leo Shelvis and Cor Lems, combative, all-action midfielders who loved to shoot from distance. They were anchored by Marco van Alphen, a more cultured midfielder who would look to make himself available for the pass and keep things ticking over. In defence, the wonderfully mulleted Michel Adam was the aggressor, Gentile the coverer. Well, if you ask Romario, he'd say Gentile was an aggressor too. Both kept things simple on the ball, expected to just give it to the midfield. The fullbacks, Purvis and Van Oosten, tended to support behind the play, but would overlap when needed in the final third. By overloading the middle of the pitch, we create space outside. Look how much space there is to drive into. And because there are so many bodies centrally, all he has to do is pick out his cross. René Stam was the keeper, a man who liked to stay high and outside his box at any opportunity. It was high tempo, direct and narrow. They defended high, looked to disrupt the opposition and funnel play inside, which is why the attacking midfielders pushed out to the wings out of possession. There's a swarm mentality, a lot of chasing the ball, and it can work well as seen here. Not just winning the ball back, but that close proximity allows us to progress the ball quickly, counter, and almost score. And it can also work less well, like here, where 3 players have gone after the ball carrier, the rest have dropped into the box, and nobody's paying attention to these lurkers. Thankfully, Hellas Verona are rubbish. Despite the ball eventually finding its way to the edge of the area, the finish is awful. The high line is also a problem. FC Den Haag scored a lot, but also conceded a lot, and the high line certainly played its part. Football tactics are cyclical in nature. They come into fashion, they go out of fashion. They return with a bang. Despite being nearly 40 years old, the Kerstboom feels very modern, and for that reason I think it should do well. Let's see, shall we? Parma should be a good fit. Predicted to finish 16th, their squad is built for a 5-3-2. That means they've got a lot of central players, with a mixture of physicality and guile up front. Nestor Elfage as my starting big man finished with 14 goals, which is a decent return. Pontus Almqvist and Gaetano Oristanio scored 10 apiece, as the attacking midfielders running off him. In midfield, Mandela Keita has the aggression. Adrian Bernabe has the shoots from distance trait. And whilst Mariano Troilo does not have the mullet, he has the aerial presence. He also has the turning circle of an articulated lorry, and that made us vulnerable with our high line. Incredibly, we finished the season 7th, 53 goals scored, 41 conceded. Our attack was a little worse than I expected. Our defence was better than I expected. Everything else was on par. We had little of the ball. We were aggressive. We kept the game in perpetual transition. I also took over at Mainz, predicted to finish 11th. They are another squad built for a 5-3-2. Up front they have massive Tietz, who is perfect as a target for crosses, finishing with 16 goals for the season. Hollerbach was our main man, adding 10 assists to 18 goals in that right AM slot. My favourite highlight, however, is a goal we conceded. All our midfielders swarming to the ball carrier, none picking up the runner. A 9th place finish is an improvement on our prediction, but perhaps a little disappointing when compared to Parma's overachievement. The statistical output is pretty much the same, and perhaps top half is the ceiling for this tactic. It scored fewer goals than I would have liked, and I think that's because of a lack of support from the midfielders and fullbacks. I'm happy with it as a faithful recreation, but if I was to adapt it for the modern game, those are the areas I'd look to address. Right, on to another Christmas tree. This time France and Aimé, appointed initially as an interim after France failed to qualify for the USA World Cup. David Ginola was jettisoned. Eric Cantona would find himself suspended for Euro 96, and with a surfeit of central midfielders, the Christmas tree was the solution. We know how this ends. They win France 98, and Jack steps down with the ultimate prize. The key here is the midfield trio, Deschamps as the water carrier, Carambeu providing verticality, and Petit shuffling. In many respects, they played within themselves, sacrificing some of their creativity to provide the balance for the players ahead. With Leeds here, we can see the centre-back comes out to cover the flank, and the DM drops into the defensive line. Now we're going to ignore this clear penalty, just as the ref did, thankfully, and it's the DM who steps out to block the shot. The outside midfielders provide energy, and we can see that here as we track the run of Fernandes and make the challenge. Ahead of them, Zidane and Jacquet. Zidane would pick up pockets of space, draw the opposition in, and dictate play. Jacquet was a runner, creating that space for Zidane to excel and getting into shooting positions. The latter would drop in and help the midfield out of possession. Zidane not so much. The hold-up play is vital. We see it here, attracting attention before releasing the fullback. Then, as play pushes forward, he looks to find the space. Now he gets a little bit lucky here, but once the opposition fullback steps up, he sets his man free again. Gavage is a difficult role to assess, neither a goal scorer nor facilitator. He pinned defenders with his physicality, he creates space through his movements. In defence, Desai and Blanc were far more sophisticated than Den Haag's offering. Desai had the quickness to cover large spaces, which allowed the fullbacks to be more aggressive, both in and out of possession. Generally, the defensive line was a cohesive unit, no traditional sweeper, allowing for a well-coordinated offside trap. The fullbacks both got forward, Lizarazu on the left more than Thuram, but still with a hint of caution. It's a relatively vanilla tactic, slow and controlled, relying on defensive solidity and creating opportunities for individual brilliance. That's probably why it worked for France. Complicated systems and international football rarely mix. But will it work in FM? Now Leeds are predicted to go down, and that might make them an odd choice. There are very few people who would describe Facundo Buonanotte as Zidane reincarnate. But he is crafty. He's able to find those pockets of space and unlock defences. He's got the vision to spot the runner, and finished with 10 assists for the season. He was also our top scorer with 8 goals. That was one more than Calvert-Lewin, reprising Gavasha's non-scoring ability. Joe Rodon has the speed and physicality of Desailly, but not the talent, and that was probably our undoing. We survived by a solitary point. Whilst 56 goals conceded doesn't sound great, it is considerably better than the rest of the teams around us. We had a decent share of possession, and our lack of sprinting speaks to our low tempo. I also took over at Rouen, predicted to finish 6th. In Ludovic Blas, they have a player with the dribbling and flair to fill that Zidane role. He seems to be pretty effective moving into that left channel and cutting inside to provide that assist or finishing touch. Alongside him, Esteban Nepal is a willing channel runner, with Mardi Camera underneath providing that Carambert-esque threat. With Quentin Merlin overlapping on the left, we have a route to send crosses into Briel Embolo. But, just as with Leeds, our flanks were vulnerable, especially from crosses to the far post. If anything, it goes to show just how good France's defensive line was. And that's what earned us the sack, mid-March, with the club in 12th. That's not great, but it's also why I love doing these recreations. The question at the top was, can it work? And the answer is no. Or maybe, Leeds just about did enough, and it'd be interesting to see how it fares with a higher quality player. But there's no time for that. On to the final tactic. Of course, it's none other than Carlo Ancelotti. Arriving at Milan in 2001, Ancelotti inherited a team full of playmakers. Pirlo, Seedorf, Albertini, Rui Costa. The solution was to drop Pirlo deeper, into the regista role he eventually became synonymous with. Albertini departed, Kaka arrived, and the Christmas tree flourished. Over an 8-year period, it won 2 Champions Leagues and 1 Serie A. So was it really as good as people remember? The focus again is that midfield trio. Well, mainly Andrea Pirlo. As we all know, he was the metronome, drawing the opposition onto him and punishing them with his exquisite passing. I've got Sporting here, and what I'm looking for is those raking long passes that unlock defences. Is it pinpoint accuracy or crappy defending? Who cares? It's sexy whatever it is. But playmaking is not just about the sexy. It's about identifying space and making the right decision, like finding the free man. Alongside him, Gattuso and Ambrosini covered ground, offered short passing options and screened for turnovers, with Seedorf helping out to create a narrow 4-4-2. And we see it here, as Porto comes forward, the midfielder drifts out to the wide areas. We force the opposition to go back and recycle the ball. In possession, Seedorf acted more as a facilitator, finding pockets of space and keeping the ball moving. Kaka was more incisive, creative and free, yes, but often looking to carry into the box and get a shot away. What I like with the shadow striker is things like this short run forward, so that he can then peel back to create space to receive and play it through. Of course, I'm also looking for that touch of magic, that little bit of flair that excites and unlocks defences. Milan Shevchenko was a goal-scoring machine. His quickness and movement kept defences deep. That in turn created the space for Seedorf and Kaka to operate. In defence, Nesta and Maldini need no introduction, 2 of the greatest to ever exist. At fullback, both like to get forwards, Cafu considerably more cavalier. It's a typical Ancelotti tactic, a mix of control and verticality, providing a platform for attacking expression. Defensively, it's a mid-block 4-4-2, well, 4-4-1-1, compact and organised. Whilst I think that this Milan side should have won more than it did, it was terribly fun to watch. I'm not sure how it will get on in FM though, so let's find out. Sporting are a great choice here, predicted to finish second, but with a squad oozing in quality. Gonçalves is our Kaka. We've seen his ability to create already, but he also needs to score, which he did. Finishing with 17 goals and 19 assists for the season, he was a true dual threat. Ahead of him, Luis Suarez filled the Shevchenko role and scored 26 goals, using his pace to take advantage of high defensive lines, and when those lines were a little bit deeper, using his movement to get across defenders. Ivan Fresneda maybe isn't a natural Cafu, but still managed to pick up 13 assists from wingback. Francisco Trincão, however, was the star. His ability to link play and break into the box was truly majestic. He finished the season with 41 goal contributions, 23 goals, 18 assists. That put us over the top in Liga Portugal, winning the title by 5 points. We didn't have the most possession, but we dribbled the most, we shot the most, and we conceded the least XG. I also took over at Real Sociedad, predicted to finish 7th, and the tactic was flipped for this, making Sergio Gomez our Cafu. With the freedom to get forward, he was our top creator, finishing with 16 assists. John Goretzka played the Pirlo role, supporting from behind, finding the right pass exactly when it's needed. Our Kaka is Mikel Oyarzabal, a natural fit for that kind of hybrid 9/10. He is just as comfortable surging forwards and scoring as he is breaking into the channels and creating chances for others, like Taka Kubo, who could do both too, as shown by this assist for Gonçalo Guedes. In fact, like with Sporting, Kubo outperformed Oyarzabal. 2 more games, 2 more goals, 2 more assists. Guedes' 16 goal contributions is a little underwhelming, yet still good enough for 4th. Similar possession numbers, not quite as dribbly, not quite as many shots, not quite as good defensively. But that is not a surprise. Sporting are relatively stronger against their division compared to Real Sociedad. I don't expect the same output, and finishing 4th is a fabulous achievement. Overall, I think it's a fair reflection of each manager. Adriaanse thrived as the underdog. Ancelotti created a platform for his stars to excel. Jacquet relied on his stars to solve the attack. All 3 tactics are linked below, and I'd love to know what changes you'd make to make it suitable for the modern era. See you next time. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, please consider leaving a like or maybe subscribing. Your support means the world. And if you want to join these wonderful folks currently adorning your screen, you can become a member or patron. Details in the description below.